Martha, I'm delighted to have a chance to talk to you. I've gotten really familiar with you and your work over the last 4 to 5 years and have an enormous amount of respect for your expertise. And I wonder if you could just share a couple of words about who you are and your background.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you and to be at the conference this year. I'm an ASEC certified sex therapist and an ASEC supervisor as well. And I have a private practice in Madison, Wisconsin, where I specialize in working with kind of complicated relational presentations, alternative sexualities like polyamory and kink, and sexual function and dysfunction.
Great, and I know that for the upcoming conference, you're going to be doing 2 workshops for us, one on polyamory and one on desire discrepancy. And let's spend a minute talking about the desire discrepancy workshop, because I know in the cases that I consult on, so many therapists get stumped by this presentation. They really don't seem to know where to go. And I wonder if you could just contribute or say a few words about why these cases are so darn hard.
They are so darn hard, aren't they? You know, every time I ask therapists what they are getting stuck with sex issues, desire discrepancies on top. And I just love teaching about it because it's not so complicated once you have a way of thinking about it. The thing about desire is it seems really simple. It seems like a thing that we all have, we all understand. We've all had some experience with having more of it, having less of it in various areas, sexual and otherwise. But really, sexual desire is incredibly multifactorial. So that's why people get stuck. Most couples therapists and therapists generally don't have much education in at least 2 of the areas that are crucial to understand in order to work effectively with desire. So one of them is the sexual aspects of desire. But I would say that boils down to super simple information you could get from a self-help book or a couple of good articles about sex. Basically, is there enough stimulation of the right kind in the right place for long enough, right? That's the sexual part. But then there's all the physiology of how arousal works in our physical bodies. Who the heck has any education in that at all? So lots of sex therapists don't even have education in physiology of arousal. If you understand a little bit about how the physiology works, all of a sudden everything starts to make a little bit more sense. But just leaving that part out is a non-starter. You have to have something there because it's a huge category. And then there's all the emotional stuff, and then there's all the relational stuff. So one of the things I love about talking about this at the couples conference is so many people at the couples conference are familiar with the developmental model of couples therapy, which is a great construct for working with complicated relational presentations, and desire discrepancy is that.
And I know that I've heard you in some of your workshops, you know, take some case examples from the audience at times and really help people get inside your mind and see where you would start or how you would think about it. And I think that's a really valuable contribution that you bring, is that willingness to share how your brain processes. And I've seen you do that also in some of the polyamory work that you teach. And I wonder if you could say a little bit about your workshop on polyamory as well.
Sure. You know, polyamory is becoming really, really common. And it's not something that therapists can afford to not know anything about anymore. And there's this sort of whole aspect of cultural competence where it's important just to know something about the culture so that your client isn't your only source of education about it. But I think the larger issue has to do with having a way of conceptualizing the case. So kind of similar to what I bring to desire discrepancy, a way of thinking, a way of looking at what's coming and sorting out all of the pieces and beginning to tackle them one by one in kind of an orderly fashion that makes some sense. So, you know, aside from probably my main message about polyamory is we could all just start from a working assumption that for some people it's extremely workable. And then about, I don't know, 2/3 of the problems that therapists have with it just fall away as soon as we just start with that assumption. And I know that for sure. And then we can start looking at what are the pieces that this particular situation has going on that are making it complicated. And I love helping people start to think through how to sort all of that out and tackle it a little at a time so it's not so overwhelming.
You know, I think that one of the things that makes it hard is there are many therapists who say, well, it could never be workable for me. So how can I help somebody make it workable?
Right. Right. You know, it's interesting because sex issues generally are something that it's very uncomfortable for lots of people to bring up. But I have personally a difficult time bringing up things like suicidality. And yet all of us do that. It's just part of the job requirement that we have to have difficult conversations. So to me, it's natural that what I would assume is right for my client is not necessarily right for me. And what I would assume is right for me is not necessarily right for my client. But then, of course, you have to start having a way of thinking about what they bring and sorting through it that doesn't just run through your own filter of what's workable for you.
Well, having a way to think about it and a way to hold that space where you may be in a completely different spot than your client, but still create that sense of openness and ability to explore together what can work.
Exactly.
So Martha, thank you so much.